come on now. I'm fine. I mean, I'm very queer and very here, and I do get hungry. Have you seen it?
Oh, what's in an LGBT sandwich? What's in
Oh God, honestly, I don't. You might as well chuck anything in there because they've definitely not consulted with anybody queer. So you might as well just go for it. And like they've obviously like every single LGBT person I know is fucking vegetarian. So what they're doing putting bacon in the mix is beyond me.
I mean, everyone wants a sandwich, to be fair.
Straight managers in a room going, "Oh my God, it's Pride Month. What will we do? What do the gays want? Oh yeah, give them a sandwich." I mean, not gonna lie, I love a sandwich. So, but so I find it very hard to get mad at people that are genuinely like, trying to spread education and inclusivity and or talk about history or talk about queerness, because that I have no interest in policing that whatsoever. What I do want to see more policing of is big corporations doing it. So I say be here, be queer, talk about everything to do with queerness and just feck and celebrate.
So that was a little snippet from journalist and previous Titbit guest DeBarra there about the exploitation of Pride Month by big corporations. Now, I'm sure everybody does, but just in case anyone doesn't know, Pride Month is in June in honour of the Stonewall riots of June 1969 in New York, a pivotal moment in LGBTQIA plus history, with the UK's first Pride taking place 3 years later. If you're up to date with episodes, you'll remember in last month's interview with comedian Susie Ruffle, she shared her struggles with coming out and being proud. It didn't just happen overnight. She's even since commented on social media that as a teenager, she would go to bed wishing she would wake up straight. With that in mind, I want to share this brilliant quote that I randomly found from Sheffield Hallam University. If you identify as LGBTQIA+ and are celebrating, we wish you a happy Pride. We also understand that celebrating might not be where an individual is at. Whether you are celebrating or unable to celebrate, take a moment to really accept yourself just as you are. This includes knowing that your expression of your identity is absolutely fine. Not everyone has the privilege of being able to be out of the closet, and different people choose to express their identity in different ways at different times. There are no shoulds, and acceptance starts with ourselves. Now, our CJ is out and proud, and they're also proud to be neurodivergent. So I'm releasing this interview on the last day of Pride Month because tomorrow is the first day of Disability Pride Month. Disability Pride Month has been celebrated in the UK every July since 2015. Now, I know that the word disability is triggering to some, but ADHD is a disability under the Equality Act 2010. I'll leave you to enjoy this natter with the wonderful CJ DeBarra, celebrating both LGBTQIA+ and Disability Pride Month. And they've even got a treat for you at the end. Enjoy! Though blatantly obvious, the late discovery, diagnosis and treatment at 38 for severe combined type ADHD in 2022 not only improved, but genuinely saved my life, which I have since dedicated to fighting for change amidst the global ADHD crisis. As the acronym suggests, I swear like a sailor, and each episode will contain sensitive subject matter, so please always read the description before diving in, where you will also find a link to resources for support. These crucial conversations with experts by lived experience are shared to inform, validate, shame eradicate, and unite the ADHD community, with a fair few laughs along the way. I've been labelled too much all my life, but finally I celebrate my too muchness and use my justice sensitivity to let the world know that ADHD presents differently in each individual. Self-diagnosis is valid and that ADHD is not a trend. ADHD is real. And I want all ADHDers of all genders to know you are not alone. The leopard is the symbol of Aberdeen, Scotland, where this podcast began. It also symbolises bravery, the reclaiming of power, and I'm a total hun. So leopard print has become the uniform of the ADHD AF community, uniting to support each other and push for change, which together we can make happen. We are the Leopard Print Army. Hear us roar. Could you tell me your name, please?
DeBarra.
CJ's back. Pronouns?
They, them.
Age?
38.
Location?
Nottingham.
Occupation?
Journalist.
Favourite film?
I don't know, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, honestly, Tim Curry forever and ever and ever.
Oh,
ever.
I've got a Tim Curry tattoo on the back of my leg.
No!
It was 4.5 hours and he absolutely, he was worth it.
Favourite animal?
Cats. It's got to be.
Dopamine dresser or calming neutrals? I already know the answer, but go on.
I mean, given that I have yellow, orange, and purple hair at the moment, calming neutrals is not something that I'm familiar with. My general idea of a neutral is leopard print, so
Yes!
I think we're going to go with dopamine dressing, or yeah, I think that's it.
I'm with you. Leopard print is neutral. Leopard print is neutral. What city in the world are you most like?
Oh, New York, definitely. We both don't sleep.
Yes. So are you a planner? Do you like it or hate it, planning?
I am a definite planner, which you know, all the ADHD stereotype type things will tell you you're not supposed to like planning, but I don't know if it's a form of my type of masking or what, but I have to have everything planned. And I find it very, very hard and difficult when there's change. I can deviate from the plans, but it's hard.
That's interesting. See, I am a planner in the sense that, like, I like to have plans because I feel like it makes me excited about life. So I can get a bit down. So I'm like, but next week I'm doing this, and this. And that would be the way in which I would use it. But then at the same time, I'm really fine with change. In fact, I'm quite up for it. Last minute, should we just go in a completely different direction? Absolutely, let's do it. Why not? It's kind of
Yeah, I don't know. I think because I was so chaotic as a child as well, I think one of the ways in which I was I kind of coped was to start planning everything down to the ground. But
and that takes away anxiety. Like it's like
it does. So maybe it's, I mean, I've got generalized anxiety disorder as well. So I wonder how much of my planning is down to my anxiety and how much is ADHD. So
yeah.
I've never thought of that before, but it's interesting.
Your diagnosis status.
So I was diagnosed with ADHD at 10 and oppositional defiance disorder, which is, as some of you might know, is a lovely little side dish that comes along with the main order of ADHD. And then later on, as I got into my 20s, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and all of those three wonderful things combine into who I am today.
Surprise! Would you say that getting these diagnoses, was the process easy or was it difficult?
So I was very young when I got my ADHD diagnosis, and I remember very, very little about the process itself, which, you know, I'm really fortunate to have had that early diagnosis, because I know it's not easy for people and I know what the waiting times are like at the moment. But I do know that a lot went into it. Like my mum had to really fight to get me diagnosed, and it was a lot of, I mean, it was 1996, rural Ireland, you know, picture the scene. There wasn't a lot of support or knowledge out there about what ADHD was, you know. Over the years, where it did sort of cross into like the traumatic side of things was more, you know, when you're the kid at school who can't get the homework and everybody else around you can, and then they're looking at you and wondering why you're so different, or like why there's special things in place for you to do exactly the same thing they're trying to do, which leads to bullying and it leads to isolation and all the other wonderful things that kids are so great at implementing quickly. I think it was a mix, and it's only recently in the last about the last 3 or 4 years actually that I've really embraced my ADHD status and really gone, do you know what, actually I am so pleased to be neurodivergent, like, but took a long time to get there.
And do you think that that is because of the raised awareness in society, or just where you were in yourself, or what do you think changed for you?
I think it's a little bit of kind of both, because when lockdown happened, I had started writing a book about ADHD. And prior to that, I'd kind of been sort of like flirting with researching about ADHD. I'd never engaged with it before in my life. Didn't, I was
Mm,
so angry about it and touchy. And, I had a big chip on my shoulder because of the way that school and college and all the rest of it had gone for me as a result of that. And the more research I did, this was before all the TikToks and the Instagrams and
yeah, yeah.
all of this. Like the more I started writing and getting into it, I was like, do you know what? Actually, like I'm really pleased to be neurodivergent, and this explains so much about me. This explains why I do the things the way that I do them. And then amazingly, at the same time, I didn't realize other people were going through this. And because when it's you, you feel like you're the only person that this is
Yep.
happening to.
Hmm.
And then there was this wonderful explosion of ADHD online, which I know unfortunately gets referred to as like, making the
The
quotation
trend.
marks, a trend.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I found community, I found other people, I found like so many friends and wonderful experiences. And God, it opened everything for me. It was absolutely wonderful.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So, what led you to suspect that you had ADHD? But I'm guessing at your age, that was something that was seen, perhaps. That wasn't something that you had suspected yourself.
No, no, I would have had no idea whatsoever. I knew that I was different from people in school, because everyone in my class was like white and Catholic and Irish and neurotypical. And, we didn't talk about mental health. We didn't talk about any ways
No.
different. So as far as I was concerned, I knew that I was queer. I kept that to myself because I was like, I do not want that information out there. And I knew that there was something different about me in the way that I processed things and the way that I did my schoolwork and my homework. Like it was much, much harder for me, and socializing was much harder for me as well. So I knew there were differences, but I couldn't have told you why. Whereas
Mm,
my mum and my teachers were very much, talking to each other about like what they were seeing. And, obviously my mum was struggling with my behavior at home because, ADHD kids were not bad, as we do get that sort of stereotype of being,
mhm.
the naughty kid. But a lot of the time we are quite frustrated and not listened to. And I was a handful, let's put it that way.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned oppositional defiance disorder, and I don't, I mean, I know a little bit, but I don't know very much at all. Like, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, there is a percentage of us. I'm not sure how many exactly, but there are some. It does tend to go hand in hand with ADHD. For me, it manifests as like I don't know how to describe it because it's the word dislike seems very strong, but like I am very nervous and have an almost distrust of authority. And whereas I'm not like a lawbreaker. I'm not going around, like flipping off the police or throwing things at police cars. I'm not. I struggle with chain of command, line managers, understanding how those processes work. I'm sort of a bit naturally rebellious, and rejection sensitivity dysphoria is massively intertwined with both ADHD and ODD as well.
Mm.
And there's a whole sort of anger, temper, frustration thing that comes along with ODD as well. So I had quite a severe temper as a child, which I'm not proud of, but as an adult, thankfully that's not an issue for me, which is good. So
I think it's really interesting what you've said because when you said it was like an anxiety and a mistrust, that's very different to the stereotype that I perhaps had, which I'm only just thinking about now, would be like even the terms like oppositional defiance. It's like, how dare you? But actually, what you're experiencing is an anxiety and a worry as well. It's not just rebellion and two fingers up. It's like, gosh, this doesn't feel safe, or I feel mistrusting in this situation. That's super interesting.
Oh, it has caused me so much grief over the years. Like, I think there's a lot of my I'd sort of joke and say there's a lot of my appearance, which, is down to having oppositional defiance disorder, yellow hair, tattoos, piercings, the lot. People legitimately cross the road to avoid people who look like me. And so I think I channel a lot of my ODD through the way that I look. The other side of that is I have legitimately like left jobs where I have been convinced that my immediate manager, whoever it is, absolutely hates me and like
Yeah.
hates my work and that I'm the worst employee ever and that they're
I've
doing
literally nearly done that this week.
there's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah.
And I've come out the other side of these jobs, and then, at your leaving do, the person goes, "Oh, I'm so gutted you're going." And like, oh, and you're like, "Oh, I thought you hated me." So I can't, I struggle to understand relationships even more than just with my ADHD. And that becomes, the lines become even more blurred if there's like authority thrown into the mix.
I'm relating very hard. This is so interesting. We'd be here all day. I'm sorry. I'll get back on piece. So we know why you think it was later in life, or not later in life, but the differences that would have been barriers were gender,
Very much.
stereotyping.
Oh, God, yes. I mean, I don't want to harp on about the Irish Catholic thing, but
Yeah.
there were none of us that were. I mean, the reality of it is like the school I went to was really, really, really small. Like there were about 10 people in my class.
Right.
You just didn't talk about anything that was outside of the norm. So of those 10 people, no one was queer, no one was trans, no one was non-binary or had depression or anything because you just didn't talk about it.
No,
And it didn't mean those people didn't exist because, like, I
of course
exist and
they
I'm
did.
very
Yeah.
much active. But we are massively, on a wider note, we are massively missing any research or studies relating to ADHD and non-binary people, trans people, and what that looks like outside of the gender binary system. So much of the information we have is based on boys. It's based
Yeah.
on lads, stereotypical naughty 13-year-old boy. And then they wonder why so many women have their diagnosis missed because you don't fit the stereotypes of a teenage lad. Okay, I wonder why that could be. Yeah, gender plays a massive, massive role in people's experiences of how their diagnosis goes.
If you could change the system, the diagnostic process as it stands, what would you do? Like, it's how long is a piece of string and where would you start? But like, start your manifesto, go. What would you do?
For me, I know we are not going to get anywhere with this until those in authority and those in charge and the NHS, the government, admit that the system that's in place at the moment is not working. We know on the ground floor, we know that it's not working. As patients, we are very, very aware. Like, there's a 2-3 year wait here at the moment in Nottingham for ADHD and autism diagnosis. We know it's not working, but we're not being listened to, and change isn't going to happen until people in authority who actually have the power to change these systems realize that something is very, very wrong. So if I could change one thing, it's that we could find some way to get healthcare professionals to start listening to us, whatever it takes, because once that happens, that's where we start to see the change. And you did say one thing, but
No, 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 no. Carry on,
second.
please.
I would like ADHD people to be part of the process for deciding how it's changed, because nothing for us without us. Actually sit down with us and find out what we need from our support services, our medication services, our diagnostic teams.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? One informs the other. So on the one hand, you need all of the medical knowledge and the science and everything else, but you also need the patient experience, and the two have to inform each other. That's the only way it's going to work.
Exactly. The lived experience is so, so incredibly important. And that forms, I go out training and doing disability and neurodiversity awareness training with a charity called Enhance the UK. Part of the reason that, we are so successful at what we do is because we have that lived experience. We're
Yes.
experts in what we're talking about. We're going in there with the stats and the figures and being able to say, yes, okay, this is X, Y, and Z. But also all of us have a disability, or we're neurodivergent, or we're deaf, or whatever it is that we have, and we're able to say, right, let's audit this building, or let's do awareness training, and this is 100% what we have found just going about our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm not on great form. It should flow, but I know that if I just flow, we're going to end up somewhere else. So that's why I have to keep coming back.
No,
I'm like,
don't
no,
worry, don't
God
worry.
knows where I'll take us, CJ. Right, hang on. Okay, so as we know, ADHD presents differently in every single individual. We are all different. What would you say is your greatest ADHD struggle, like on the daily?
Oh my God, my brain just went completely dead. Okay.
Working memory.
Oh God. Right. My biggest struggle would definitely be rest.
Yeah.
I do not know how to rest. And there's an upside to it, and I get a absolute ton of work done and I can produce stuff very, very quickly. But the downside of that is I don't know when to say stop. So at the moment, like I work 4 or 5 jobs. So
Yeah.
I work with Enhance on the training side. I am currently working on 2 books, which are due out in February. I
Very
I
exciting.
have I have my first book, which is Neuroqueer. So I'm still touring and going around with that and promoting and doing all the bits and bobs with that. And I'm also a freelance journalist as well. So, oh, and I'm the history editor at another publication as well as organizing events and exhibitions for LGBT History Month across Nottingham at the moment. And I run a
So that's
history
6, isn't
archive.
it?
So this is what I'm talking about. I do not have an off switch, and the problem with that is when the going is good and I'm on top of the world and I've got all the energy, that's wonderful. But when I'm running low and, you know, particularly recently, my mum passed away. And when that happened, everything ground to a halt. And it just felt like completely overwhelming. Like everything was overwhelming. And it was really then that I sat back and went, wow, like this is an insane amount of work for one person. Like this is crazy. It's hard at the moment because what they don't tell you about grief is you come out the other side and you have got this overwhelming exhaustion
Yeah.
that takes over your physical sense, your brain, your emotions, all of it, and you feel like the heaviest thing.
Yes.
So not being able to rest and not being able to let yourself get into recovery mode, huge problem. Huge
Well,
problem.
first of all, I'm honestly just so, so sorry for your loss. And I know that it's been said, and I know you can't quantify these things, but allegedly, we neurodivergent people, we do process grief differently. We find it, I don't know if we find it more difficult. How the fuck do you quantify grief? But you know what I'm saying? We, because of things like time blindness, or when we lose our space in time and space, and then you have to relive it again, and things like that happen, it can be harder for us to process. Like, do you feel that you will be able to make differences to the way that you go forward and work having had this experience, or do you feel that you wouldn't be satisfied, or that these things would just creep back up on you, like next thing you know you're doing 6 jobs at once again? How do you know what I mean? Because I'm exactly the same. I'm exactly the same, and people keep saying to me, are you spreading yourself too thin? It's just like, but I'm not, because I want to do all of these things and I need to do them, and this is how long the day is,
Yeah, no, I get it. And I'm trying to let things go. So the massive archive project that I've been working on for 2 or 3 years, I set up an LGBT history archive in Nottingham, which is comprised of 160 different interviews with people and a media library as well. Um, that's going into the two books, and that's what's going to be released in February. So
Oh, wonderful.
once those are done, and all signed, sealed, the exhibition, the events, the books, all of that's done, and then I can hand the archive stuff over to two archives that are going to be permanently housing it. That's it. It's gone off my shoulders, and I'm going to have to work really careful not to replace that with something else.
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah. So I'm going to start letting go of things bit by bit by bit, because the unfortunate thing was, as I was going through this process, yourself, like if you've got hyper focus on something, when you feel that hyper focus go. And I felt it go out during that time. And I know that it's finishing and it's coming at the right possible time. So I'm
Okay.
pleased with that.
Yeah, because obviously the other thing to take into account is burnout, right? Like what is your, do you have experience of that? Can you identify that? Because I've spoken to so many different people with different experiences that are like, well, actually, I think I experience it physically. Like I realize I'm in burnout because I have IBS, or do you know, that sort of thing. Do you know what that looks like for you?
Yes, I can so I had one terrifying experience with it, which was when I was doing my MA. So again, I'll start from the start. I did an MA in journalism in Dublin. And at the time, I was again running all these, insane amount of jobs, studying at night, working as a freelance journalist. I had a really super successful blog at that point that was, so I was running to all these different events and covering all these different things. And I was run ragged, and I didn't
Yeah.
have a place to properly live at that point. So I was actually squatting in my friend's aunt's office, and so I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't resting, I wasn't, all of that. And I ended up being, I thought I was genuinely like losing my mind or extremely ill, because I couldn't walk without, I was wavering. I would not quite hallucinate, but I was getting things like I went out one night, rang up my friend and said, "Oh my God, I've just had a conversation with your partner." And she said, "He's literally right beside me." And turns out I'd been talking to
Gosh.
somebody from work that I know is not her partner, but my brain had confused the two. And then
Wow.
I nearly burnt my house down. I came home. I was working three internships at the time and studying and all the rest. And the house that I was squatting in had a little kitchen bit. So I came in, finished it. I was working at a radio station at the time, came in, I had like an hour to myself to eat and then turn around and go back. So I put some oil in a pan,
Oh
put the pan
no.
on the stove, and my brain just went oof, gone. And I remember looking across and seeing the pan on fire.
Oh
And
God.
I was so incredibly lucky. I picked it up. Nothing else had gone up. I ran across the room to the back door, which was locked. So I had to go run out the front with this pan. And I'm sort of laughing in a way because at the time, this office was in one of the poshest areas of Dublin. So there were all these people out there with like their fancy cars and their paninis and their like, very expensive dogs that they're pretending to walk. And there's me like battering this pan on fire out the front of this house that I don't even live in. I'm like squatting. And I can laugh about it because it's fine now.
Yeah, it's very
So
physical comedy, but the actual is actually very serious. But yeah.
it was bad.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
scary. It's really scary.
it was. And I was just falling asleep in the oddest of places. Like I would walk into, the newsroom and pull up just sit on the couch, pull up and just put a jacket over myself and go to sleep for a couple of hours because
Yeah.
I physically couldn't be awake. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've never gotten that bad since, luckily, but I have had a couple of days where I call it going to ground, where I literally like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to do anything. I literally just want to eat crap food and like sit in bed doing nothing for the whole day. And
Recharge.
that's me
Yeah.
rebooting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In one big go rather than like taking little hours here and there, just one massive day of nothing.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, the thing is, we have to do what works for us, don't we? And that's the thing is, I often think for me, so much of it is momentum. So if I was to stop and have a break, like people sit down, they have a lunch break, or I'm going to go and do this in 15 minutes, 15 fucking minutes. Like, I zone out for 15 minutes and don't even realise I'm not going to actively decide to take a 15-minute break. I'd never get going again because it wouldn't be 15 minutes, it'd be 5 hours or something, you know? And you have to just find out what works for you. But yeah, I'm glad that you recognize what you need and that you're taking care of yourself, because that's the issue, isn't it? So often we don't. And it's not just dangerous, but obviously we have other people in our lives that we're responsible to be all right. As do you, who's just got engaged. I'm allowed to say that, aren't I?
Yes, you are. I was wondering how long you'd leave it before you did. Yeah. So amazingly, considering that like I'm the same person who wrote a book about like being single and dating as a neurodivergent person. The last thing I was expecting at all was to ever meet somebody, let alone get engaged and be planning a wedding. And oh my God, I have to say, like planning a wedding it's next level stress. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just, I do not warn you about like, I never thought I would be genuinely like sitting here having conniptions about what color like napkins or
Yeah.
straws or and I'm like, I hope there's a time in my life where I don't have to care about this.
Honestly, it's the choice paralysis. You've got guilt about the cost. Then it's like people pleasing because you want everyone to be happy, but that's impossible anyway. And you're supposed to just think of yourself, but then you can't. It's so many things.
Oh,
Yeah.
we have just been sort of battling through what we're going to do because we met and fell in love in Nottingham. Like, I'm not from Nottingham. I'm from West Cork originally. My partner's from Cardiff. So neither of us are like,
Yeah.
we are very, I mean, Nottingham's my second home. Like it's, so we are emotionally invested in this place, but it's not home for either of
Yeah.
us. But then if we get married in Ireland, that's cutting my partner's
Yeah.
background out and then vice versa. So we've had some interesting fights over pints as to whose home place would be better crack to have a wedding in.
And where's winning?
Oh, Ireland.
Obviously.
I am very persuasive.
Oh, I love it. Do you have a date?
So we're hoping next summer. Sadly, we were hoping to do this summer in order to get my mum to be
Yeah.
present at the wedding, but unfortunately, it was just wasn't
Yeah.
going to happen. So we've put everything on hold until potentially August next year. So
Lovely.
hopefully everything goes according to plan, and we can just
Yeah.
figure out the napkin colours in due
Yeah.
course.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. It's
Oh,
wonderful
thank
news.
you.
So, your book, you want to talk about it a bit in case anybody hasn't heard the tidbit?
So it was very much a lockdown baby that I did not think I would ever be able to get published. And certainly it wasn't easy to get it published, but it has amazingly almost been out a year now. And it is part memoir, part research, part interview, kind of, archive's not the right word, but I interviewed 50 people, women, trans and non-binary people with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And it started because I got really annoyed at how little information there was about sex, love, and relationships for ADHD people, whether you're queer or you're straight. It just so happens that I'm queer and the personal experiences that are in this book are queer. So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
you can very much read it as a straight person. You won't
Yes.
burst into flames, don't worry.
Rainbow flames.
Rainbow flame. But yeah, I got so annoyed with not being able to find the information I was looking for. So went out and got it basically.
Yeah.
And I looked at everything from like, dating to dating apps to kink, long-term relationships, long distance, literally everything I could think of. I went and looked for how it affects us, like how do we go about it? What does that look like for us? And like what experiences have I had that back that up?
Let's go back to ADHD. Do you have a treatment plan? Do you take medication? Do you have therapy?
So my kind of treatment and medication journey has been a weird one. I was medicated as a child and it didn't really do much for me, to the point where my mum took me off medication when I became 14. And like that is, if you think about it, the weirdest time to take a child off medication.
Yeah.
You're hitting the teenage years, and like, by the time you're 14, you should be, if you're doing teenage right, you should be an absolute nightmare. So the fact that my mum took me off the meds at 14 is, just unheard of. So I went for years going, I'm fine. I am just as good as everybody else. I can do this. And I didn't ask for any reasonable accommodations, didn't ask for any help, any support, nothing. I was really angry about it. I didn't want anything. Like, I can do it if everyone else can. When lockdown happened, I'm sorry to be talking and reminding people of lockdown so much, but it really was a huge part of my journey. I contacted the NHS and said, right, I'm not coping. I would really like I've got my diagnosis, I've got all the letters and all the bits and bobs that you need from Ireland. I would like to see if medication fits me better as an adult. And I had a chat with this one of the guys from the support services or the GP or whatever part of the I'm trying to not name the organization and doing a terrible job of it. But basically I got told, nah, you're fine, off your pop. And I got left without meds. And I was so distressed that I started like, right, well, if I can't get traditional meds, what could I do that would be different, that might be more helpful? And at that time, I just so happened to be a cannabis journalist, as you do, totally normal job title to have. And I came across a clinic in London, and I reached out and had an assessment and got a prescription for medical cannabis, and that really helped. So I started to self-medicate with CBD and prescribed medical cannabis. So CBD during the day and then medical cannabis at night. And then I also take lion's mane. It's a totally legal run-of-the-mill mushroom. It looks a bit insane, to be fair. If you ever Google what main mushroom looks like, it is a gnarly looking thing. And I take that for ADHD and perimenopause brain fog.
And do you every day or
every day?
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. And the combination of all of those things have been absolutely fantastic. So I am that's been my medication journey more than, your traditional
prescribed meds,
but not for lack of trying. Not for lack of trying.
I'm so sorry you were dismissed. That's the thing that's so frustrating about it as well. It's just like, it's really quite dangerous, and across the board, because it's not just not treating somebody, but to be dismissed, to have already, be in a bad place, to then be dismissed is such a dangerous thing.
I reported him, and I had follow-up after follow-up, and basically it came to nothing. It came to nothing, but he was so dismissive, rude, and to be honest, I was fully in tears on the call with him, because it was still COVID at that point. You couldn't be in the room with somebody, so it was a phone call. And I remember saying, I'm struggling. I'm at the end of my tether with this. I can't cope. I'm really I feel like the worst employee in the world, that I'm going to lose my job because I'm this, and this, and it's all due to my ADHD. And that wasn't the case. It was as I mentioned earlier, ODD and ADHD and
Yeah.
RSD and all the acronyms. But basically his response was, yeah, no, you're fine. And I was like, okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's so shit, and so shared by so many of us, sadly. It
Oh,
really
way
is
too
a very
many.
sad state of affairs. It's really good that you have found what works for you, though. And where would you say that you're up to now? Like, obviously, you had your diagnosis earlier, but coming to terms with everything like you did through the pandemic, they say that getting a diagnosis later in life is akin to the grief cycle. But I mean, I think it's a lot more all over the place because you're sort of discovering more and more as you go alongside fluctuating hormones, life circumstances, job stress, everything. Where do you think you're at now? Like you say, you feel quite proud. So you're definitely at acceptance then.
Yeah, it's a weird one because like as you're saying, like it's not a linear thing where, it's
No.
just as soon as you think that you've got a handle on your neurodiversity or your neurodivergence, all of a sudden life will throw something at you
Yeah.
and you're back to square one. So for me, I've got very big life things coming up at the moment. So I feel like I'm now learning to navigate, like I'm on board with my ADHD. I'm fine with it. I'm proud of it, but I'm learning to navigate like scary adult stuff like marriage, kids, house buying with ADHD,
Yeah.
weddings, all of that. That's throwing up strange and unusual things. And then at the same time, I'm perimenopausal and I'm having to
Mhm.
now understand what ADHD looks like in the context of that, because we do not get told anything about going into perimenopause, being any of the stages of it, let alone what that looks like for us
I
with
didn't even know what
ADHD.
it was until relatively recently. In the last couple of years, I knew about menopause, but that's just like at some point your period stops and that's kind of it. Yeah.
Oh, I that's what I thought was going to happen, and I was fully on board with that. I was like, I am fine.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have to have this every month. Grand.
Nice
And
one. Yeah.
what I wasn't on board with was I mean, my sleep was already shit anyway, but I wasn't on board with like the
Mm.
mad sweats, the hot flushes, you know, when I say I was irritable, I mean, I was like an absolute bag of cats to be around. I was horrendous. My emotions were like, up
Yeah.
and down at the touch of a button, kind of, I had no idea what was going to spark me off. And that's not me. I'm such a chill person normally.
Yeah.
There's so much of it about around the menopause that you don't expect as well in terms of how your ADHD interacts with it, like having to go to complex doctors meetings where you struggle to pay attention, then you suddenly realize that you've missed half the appointment and you don't know how to take your meds properly or like what this
Yeah.
cream does, or having to remember to take your HRT every day.
I've got
It's
myself in a right pickle with it. Like I've put on the wrong patch before and really made myself quite unwell.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, it's
I
a
thought,
lot to keep
believe it.
remembering and doing. Yeah.
Yeah, because I take HRT in tablet form, and
Hmm.
when I was packing to rush home to Ireland to get to be with my mum, the one thing I forgot to pack was all my tablets, and
Mm.
part of that is my HRT. So I spent a month at home roughly, and boy did I know about it coming off HRT, because all of a sudden my knee pain came back with a vengeance, and not
Hmm.
only it wasn't just my left side now, it took the right side down with it as well. So
Oh no.
yeah, so I don't know. I think there's a lot of work that needs doing around ADHD and menopause in particular. I am really keen to see something done around it, to be honest.
100%. Absolutely. What has undiagnosed ADHD cost you?
For me, I think I would refer to it as, not engaging with my ADHD. And I know what that's cost me. That's like it, not asking for support in college, and getting a lower mark as a result.
Yeah.
Not asking for help with like finances and realizing that impulsive spending has meant that, I have got less money as a result. Mainly I'm cross at myself for not asking for help from employers in college sooner, because so upfront now with people that employ me about my ADHD. It's ridiculous. You
Yeah.
know, and most of the time it's been, to my advantage because they're able to put reasonable adjustments in place that help me
Yes.
to get through my day. And I mean, granted, one of, my employers is me. I'm a freelance journalist. But I also work for a disability charity as well. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm really in a very good position to ask for, and I know that other people may not be in such a privileged position to be able to ask for things, but you legally can. You
Yes.
legally are entitled to be able to ask your employer, but people, the reality of that is people sometimes feel embarrassed or shy, or all these emotions around
And
telling.
sometimes, yeah, and sometimes employers don't know and react in not the best ways. But the issue is that that is the law. So if they don't know, then they need to get to know, don't they? And
Exactly.
act
And
accordingly. Yeah.
exactly. And there are laws in place to help you if your employer is not supportive, and if you feel that you're being discriminated against. And but I do wish I had asked for help sooner, because it is so incredibly freeing. And also it's done wonders for my relationships as well.
Yeah.
I I would struggle with things, and not draw a parallel between my ADHD and my behavior in romantic and friendships, and or any type of relationship really. So yeah, I wish I had engaged with it sooner, to be honest.
It's so funny, because I totally hear everything that you're saying, but it's right, it sort of goes full circle, like right back to what we were saying about this kind of grief roller coaster cycle type of thing, because like I know for myself, even though I can absolutely say I'm at acceptance,
Mhm.
absolutely, it doesn't mean that I'm clicking my heels together with glee about it. And I think for the most part, yeah, maybe I could stretch to proud. I don't know. But then something will happen. And I see a pattern of behavior recycle. It's always something to do with relationships. I always end up in trouble somehow. I always do. Trouble written across my forehead for my entire life. And then what I feel is quite a lot of shame, even though I can see that it is my ADHD that has led me to this path, tripped me up again. I've made the same mistakes, bad judgments, whatever it is again. I still feel quite a lot of shame when the inevitable occurs. So it's really just working with it. But I guess it's less, you know?
That's the thing. It's about balance. I don't think you ever get to a stage with this where you're like, that's it.
Hooray, I've
I'm
lost my
fine. I know
keys.
everything. It's fine. No, it's 100% about balance. You're still human at the end of
Yeah.
the day. So I have
Yeah.
days where my ADHD floors me, and like I do something and I go, oh my God, I can't believe I've done that. And I mean, I go around, and you do as well. We both go around talking about ADHD a lot.
Mm,
And yet
mm.
we still have the downsides to it, because
Yeah.
it's just part and parcel of the human experience. And also, like, I mean, I get mad when people go, oh, it's a superpower, and we're
Oh, don't start.
this. And I'm like, God, just let me have my shit times, please. Just let me fucking sit in my bed of misery and wallow for a day while I recharge, because I've run myself into the ground being ADHD and hyper and all the rest of it. Just let
Yeah.
me have that, please.
Yeah. Do you know, it's so funny though, because I think that or the experience that I've had, again, I have to admit that everything I know is goes through a really shitty RSD lens. So
Mm.
how true this is, I'm not the best at deciding whether this is true or just how I feel about it. But quite often it feels as though people are surprised when I have ADHD, as in not people that don't know, I mean people that do. So like if I fuck up some admin or if I forget something, or if I am just a complete wreck, which I sometimes am, I sometimes can't slow my thoughts down at all. And I'll be like, "Ah, can you, or I'll start crying, or any of those things that are how ADHD presents in me. Sometimes people are taken aback or a bit kind of judgmental. And it's like, I don't just fucking talk about it. Like, it literally is what it says on the tin. Like, I really am ADHD AF. And I think it's such a funny thing in this space that suddenly it looks like I've won ADHD. I stand at the top with a flag. Like, it's weird, isn't it?
Oh my God, I 100% get it, because I find that, like, there are people that say, oh yeah, I'm fine with ADHD. I'm fine. I know you have ADHD. That's fine. Yeah, you're fine with it when you see me masking,
Yes.
masking like a motherfucker, and I'm getting
Yeah.
my bills paid, my invoices done, my paperwork's out, I'm but then when I'm having a meltdown or a shutdown, that's when you're judging me as an ADHD
Yes.
person. That's when you're going, oh yeah, oh no, God, not like that. No,
Yeah.
you know. And other people have got to learn to cope with us when we're at our best and when we're at our worst,
Yeah.
because it can't be this thing of like, oh, they've got ADHD and we're fine with that, except for when you're doing all of the things that are slightly
Except if they cry or,
yeah,
or speak too loudly or won't sit still.
yeah,
As long as they
exactly.
don't do those things, that's fine.
Yeah, just be the type of ADHD where like you're super productive, like to the point of ridiculous, and like you're making loads of money for the company because you're getting all the shit done. Be that ADHD. Don't be the
And
one.
that much of a people pleaser that you're bending backwards so far over everyone that you're just fawning, just like, what can I do for anybody? What do you need?
I don't know. This is it. This is it. And like, it's when people see you have the meltdown that they're like, oh God.
Yeah.
And
This
it's,
is
yeah,
messy. This is uncomfortable.
this is my day to day. This is my life. This is like why it is considered a disability. And I think people need to experience that in order to be able to fully understand it. And I think for so many people, they see ADHD as, when you go online and you look at the TikToks and all the Instagrams and all this stuff, and it's fantastic and it's wonderful, but a lot of it focuses on the negatives of ADHD. And then I think, quite the reverse of what we've just said as well. I think people can expect us to be a bit chaotic and a bit like, and then they can almost be surprised in a way when they see us being super productive and organized.
Yeah.
And so there's sort of both sides to it, and I
Yeah.
really worry about the level of negativity surrounding ADHD and things like TikToks, where they're going like, I
Mm,
put my keys in the fridge, or like
yeah.
we don't do that.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, we do that. That's
I mean,
but
but we are also capable. See, what it is the disparity.
yeah.
I was reading about it the other day. ADHDers, actually, this could just be neurodiverse people. I don't know. But in the context that I read it, which obviously I can't remember where to quote, but it said that we have a greater disparity between the things that we are good at and the things that we are bad at. So we can be really, really good at a thing and fucking terrible at another thing. Now that's human nature and that's life, but the disparity seems to be greater. And that's the thing, is you can't say, for example, yes, I have no sense of time and I don't know where my bank card is and I keep forgetting to cancel it or get another one, etc., etc. All of those things are true, but I've also managed to keep going doing this podcast for 2 years, and this is episode 100 and something. So the consistency of things, it's not going to be across the board. You're ADHD, so you're unreliable, late, whatever the fuck else you might think, based on the things we're not good at. Actually, that's not true at all. We can be really, really brilliant in other ways, as much or more than anybody else,
Yeah, because it's sort of comes back to the dopamine thing in my mind. We are great at the things we're great at because we have that dopamine, that rush and that hyper focus into it because we're connected with it. So what we don't connect with, we struggle to pay attention to. And that's where, the bank cards get lost, you're not paying attention in doctor's appointments. So suddenly you don't know how to take your meds properly. And, that to me is why there's such a disparity between the two.
Yes.
You're either really good at something or you're really shit at it, and there's no in between because there's so much that feeds into it.
So, with that in mind, let's talk about dopamine. How do you get yours? Because we know we've got these faulty dopamine receptors. What do you do to help you get your dopamine?
My dopamine seeking is very nerdy.
I'm here for it.
So I will be that person that finds the pop-up dive bar down an alleyway. They're like,
Yes.
tap the third brick to the right to be let in, and they'll only let you in if you've got a nose ring, but it has to be on the right nostril, not the left. I am literally that person. So like whenever I go away, the first thing I do is I look for, right, what can we do that's weird? Where can we go that like is going to be unusual? Myself and my partner love doing like glamping weekends and things like that. We've just come back from a weekend in Leicester in the middle of the countryside where we had like a hot tub, and it was just, oh my God, it was
Oh,
amazing.
lush.
It was gorgeous. Honestly, like I still managed to find the best pubs to go to, or like where we could get like a really good pizza, or like, I live for it.
I do. I do. My husband thinks it's weird because he's like, we could just fucking show up somewhere and see what there is. I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
want to find the most exciting, weirdest, random, best thing. I read the menu before I go to any restaurant. I do all of that. I want to know all the things. I'm excited about it. It's part of
God,
it.
same. I need to know. I really, really need to know. And I really want to have that buzz that comes with thinking, I can't experience this anywhere else.
Yes. What would you like the world to know about ADHD?
I think I would like people to know how different it is for everybody. I would like people to get to know their friend, their loved one, their partner who has ADHD and what that looks like for them, as opposed to going on Google or TikTok and looking at somebody else talking about what it looks like for them and assuming that we're all the same.
Mhm.
I would also, on that same vein, like to encourage, everybody who has ADHD to get to know what that looks like for them, what their traits are, whether they've, like me, they've got some side dishes of, oppositional defiance disorder or whatever it is that you might
Mhm.
have, and be able as a result to tell your partner what you need and what you want, or tell your employer that, hey, you know what, I need this reasonable adjustment, and just get to know that side and that part of you, because it's a massive part. It's everything.
Informs
It
everything,
forms
yeah.
everything. So that would be my advice to both people who have ADHD and those who love people with ADHD.
Yeah, that is absolutely sound advice. What song best describes your ADHD?
I bet you've had this one before, but Song 2 by Blur.
Oh, that's a great one. No, I haven't had it.
No,
No.
oh my God,
No.
I would have thought that was the most obvious song for someone with ADHD, because it's got those like lovely kind of like
Yeah.
anticipatory moments of like the build up, and then it just goes absolutely ape shit.
Yeah.
Like that to
Yeah.
me is like 100% what it feels like in my head.
It's such a good one. I absolutely love
Oh, it's a
it.
banger.
So tell me, what is the most ADHD thing you've done this week? Or ever, whatever you feel like sharing.
Mm, Christ. I mean,
I don't even tell mine. This is the great thing about being the person who
yeah,
asks the questions. No one's ever asked me. So
I will
I
now.
wouldn't tell you. I wouldn't tell you.
You see, oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. So I was delivering training this week to a group of managers, and they were so lovely, and I absolutely love doing the training. And then I just, bang in the middle of talking about ADHD, had a moment where my focus went, and I just was sat there like, oh shit. And I mean, it was exasperated from the fact that I've had 3 weeks off HRT. So my brain fog is like back with a
Yes.
vengeance, like brain fog 2.0. This time it's personal. And these poor managers were just like looking at me, and I was looking at them. I was like, I had to admit it. I was like, I'm really sorry. This is what it looks like in real time. You're just like this, I'm just trying to show you what it looks like when somebody with ADHD has a minute. But
Perfectly timed, actually.
oh, it was all for show, you know, this is it. And you have to laugh about it, like,
Yeah.
because again, all of us from Enhance, when we're training, we've all got, like, you know, different conditions that manifest in different ways. And, like, you know, that can be fantastic, but also it can be like that really, really hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's fine. You've got to learn to laugh about it at the same time, you know, because you can't be continuously pissed off about the fact that you can't find your bank cards for the fourth time that week
Yeah.
every day. So
Yeah, exactly that. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything that we haven't covered? I mean, I find it hard to believe because I think I've taken you around the world and back, but is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share?
So, I mean, I would just like to, if anybody's interested in reading about ADHD, love, sex, and relationships, my book is very much out there and covers all of those things. It's called Neuroqueer, a neurodivergent guide to love, sex, and everything in between. And you can find that literally anywhere. So, you know, your Amazons, your Waterstones, all of the major bookshops, and some of your independent ones as well. Please support an independent neurodivergent author if you can.
Yay! An independent neurodivergent legend. Thank you,
I do try.
CJ. It's been so lovely to speak to you again. Thank you ever so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Right, so as promised, here's a treat for you. CJ is giving away a copy of Neuroqueer. So if you're based in the UK or Ireland, head to at CJ DeBarra on Insta. It's a collaborative giveaway with at ADHDAF podcast to enter. It's really hard to say enter, not like Mystique. On top of this, CJ is very kindly giving up their time to do a Q&A over Zoom with the peer support community members. I'm so, so grateful for that. You can join us on Planet ADHD AF via the link in the blurb of this episode. I have so much gratitude to the community for all of their support and for keeping me just about upright and forward facing as I navigate some murky mental health waters. I have to say, when I referenced Susie Ruffle earlier, when she was talking about pride, I echo the sentiment when it comes to disability pride. There are times when the wrecking ball of ADHD swings in and bashes things up so hard that I go to bed wishing I would wake up neurotypical. But I have to say that if I wasn't ADHD AF, then this podcast, all whose lives it has touched, and the community it has grown would never have happened. And for that, I'm not just incredibly grateful, I am proud. So finally, in auditory processing corner this week, this one comes with a bit of a trigger warning because I'm going to reference drugs here. My husband and I went to Ibiza and we were at the beach one afternoon and a guy approached us selling sunglasses, handbags, etc. And I said, no, thank you. To which I thought he replied, have a lovely morning. I said to Big, gosh, that was so polite. Confused, he replied, what was? I said, that guy. I mean, it's a bit random because it's 5 p.m, but I guess if you're waking up from a night out, this is the morning. Big was like, what do you think he just said to you? And then howled laughing. Laura, he said, Charlie, Mandy, Molly. He was dealing. Absolute lols. I wonder how many times that's happened and I've been completely oblivious. Anyway, I hope to see those of you attending the last ADHDF Alien Nation show at Comedia Brighton at 5 p.m. on Saturday, the 20th of July. The most ADHD thing I've done this week is misunderstand a conversation with the wonderful Rosie Turner of ADHD Untangled podcast, which led to me missing her off the post, sharing the legendary guests that are joining me. I'm so sorry again, Rosie. I cannot wait to see her, coaches and comedians Kim Pierpoint and Susie Payton, author Kat Brown, ADHD chatter host Alex Partridge, my partner in ADHDF Emporium, Steph of All the Discos, Nicole Nadler performing a preview of her Edinburgh Fringe show, Why Am I Still Like This, and all of you joining for the very last ridiculous hurrah, where an ADHD seminar meets bingo, karaoke and cabaret, and ADHD adults meet each other. Tickets for which are available via the link in the blurb of this episode. Massive, massive love and gratitude to the incredible CJ DeBarra. Don't forget to enter the giveaway. If you're straight, Neuroqueer is for everybody and you won't burst into rainbow flames. Big love and have a lovely morning.